We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
In 1903, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote in The Souls of Black Folk that blacks wanted to assert their identity as Negro Americans without being cursed and spit upon by their fellow American citizens, without the doors of opportunity closed roughly in their faces. Unfortunately, since the end of Reconstruction in 1877, Jim Crow had become more entrenched in America. The 1908 race riot in Springfield, Illinois, the hometown of Abraham Lincoln, sounded a clarion call to all believers in democracy to join in the fight against civil and political oppression. A year later, in New York City, a small group of people, diverse in racial, ethnic, national, and religious background, united under one premise, that all men and women are created equal and thus deserving of equal rights. Oswald Garrison Villard, W.E.B. Du Bois, Ida Wells Barnett, Mary White Ovington, Henry Moscovich, and William English Walling founded the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People on February 12th in honor of President Lincoln's birthday. Since that auspicious day, the NAACP has labored to ensure that black citizens enjoy the rights that the Constitution guarantees to all U.S. citizens. Their campaign came to Lincoln, Nebraska in 1918, when Oliver Burkhart spearheaded the chartering of the Lincoln branch of the NAACP. As the branch's first president, he recruited influential citizens, including the state's lieutenant governor and the governor-elect. In 1922, he became a key supporter in the formation of the Lincoln Urban League, whose parent organization was founded in 1910. Local and state officials frequently sought Burkhart's advice regarding issues affecting the African American community. The Lincoln branch remained active over the years and did not sit by passively during the years and decades that defined the struggle, especially the modern civil rights movement. The names and faces of Lincoln activists are vivid in our minds. Dr. Patrick Wells, Reverend G.L. Collins, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Adams, Mrs. Lenora Letcher, Mr. Hugh Bullock, Mrs. Leola Bullock, Reverend Dr. Everett Reynolds, Mr. Hughes and Mrs. Leela Shanks, to name a few. In 1950, Lincoln Public Schools hired its first black teacher. Nearly 50 years after the desegregation of Little Rock Central High, Lincoln named an elementary school after a black woman, Joanne Maxey. Almost 70 years after he served as a Tuskegee Airman in a segregated military, Lieutenant Colonel Adams has a school named after him in Lincoln. The city also boasts of a major street, Rosa Parks Way, that links two sections of the metro area. The pursuit of justice and equality continues.
Come on. We who believe in freedom and rest until it comes.
Over the last 12 months, the Lincoln branch of the NAACP has focused on 5 areas of activism. 1. Voting rights, registration, and mobilization. 2. Prison reform. 3. Medicaid expansion. 4. Racial profiling. And 5. Equal education for Lincoln students. The branch has engaged in a number of activities to meet these ends. They have attended hearings at the state capitol regarding voter rights, prison reform, and Medicaid expansion. Specifically, the branch supported Senator Campbell's bill, LB 887, the Wellness in Nebraska Act, attending both the public hearings and the press conference after the bill did not pass. The bill would have provided health care coverage to approximately 55,000 uninsured and underinsured newly eligible Nebraskans aged 19 through 65 between 0 and 133% of the federal poverty limit, who are not otherwise qualified for Medicare. A member of the branch testified before the Judicial Committee chaired by Senator Ashford to address prison reform. At the monthly meetings, the members of the Lincoln branch have met with Public Safety Director Tom Cassidy, as well as representatives of ACLU Nebraska, Nebraska Appleseed, Real Talk Magazine, which supports former prisoners returning to society, and the Human Rights Commission. The Lincoln branch partnered with Lebanon Lodge No. 3 to mobilize voters for the November 4th election. It is currently working with ACLU Nebraska, Nebraska Appleseed, Nebraskans for Peace, and other civic organizations to make an appeal against racial profiling and the militarization of police forces. As part of this effort, members have attended the meetings of the advisory group for the Nebraska Crime Commission on Racial Profiling. The branch has also brought its attention to matters across the state. When a Norfolk, Nebraska 4th of July float depicting President Obama's presidential library as an outhouse made national news, the president of the Lincoln branch was quick to respond. On July 10th, representatives of the Iowa-Nebraska NAACP State Area Conference of Branches, Norfolk officials, and representatives of the Norfolk chapter of the Independent Order of Oddfellows, the sponsor of the 4th of July parade, held a meeting. A number of steps were agreed upon at the conclusion of the talks. The mayor of Norfolk, Ms. Sue Fuchman, agreed to convene a meeting with the assistance of the NAACP aimed at fostering racial understanding in the city. The Lincoln branch remains active in addressing issues affecting this community, all Nebraskans, and the nation. While the Lincoln Adult branch has been a mainstay of the community for 96 years, sustained efforts were made to increase youth participation and bring youth into positions of leadership in their organization. Nationally, it was Juanita E. Jackson who challenged the National NAACP Board to create a department that focused on the concerns of Black youth in America. Through her efforts, in 1936, the NAACP established a Youth and College Division and named her Youth Secretary. On October 25, 2006, the Lincoln, Nebraska Youth Council was chartered at Lincoln High School. 5 years later, on October 15, 2011, the University of Nebraska Lincoln College chapter was chartered. Since their chartering, the Lincoln Youth Council and the UNL College chapter have worked tirelessly in the community to bring awareness to issues dealing with equality and social justice. This semester, the UNL College branch partnered with Amy Miller of ACLU Nebraska to promote the Young and Unarmed campaign. The event included a discussion on racial profiling and interacting with police officers. To increase their ranks, the chapter conducted a membership drive at Bid Red Welcome. The college chapter is planning a December discussion on racial memes and social media. The college chapter has planned more events for the spring semester, and they hope to impact the UNL campus as well as the wider Lincoln community. Please consider joining the NAACP as we are all in for justice and equality.
We who believe in freedom and not rest until it comes.